The conquest of India did not begin with armies marching or cannons firing. It began quietly, almost politely, with ships arriving on the coast and men claiming they came only to trade. No banners of conquest were raised. No declarations of war were announced. What arrived first was commerce, wrapped in smiles, contracts, and promises. India did not fall in a single battle. India was not conquered in one century. India was not taken by force alone. India was entered, studied, divided, and slowly consumed. To understand how the conquest of India started, we must first destroy a myth. The myth that India was conquered because it was weak. The truth is far more uncomfortable. India was conquered because it was rich, fractured, and underestimated the danger of outsiders who did not arrive as enemies. For thousands of years, India had been a magnet. Gold, spices, textiles, gemstones, knowledge, and labor flowed from its cities. Empires rose and fell within the subcontinent, but India itself remained a prize the world desired. From Persians to Greeks, from Central Asian dynasties to Arab traders, outsiders came, fought, ruled, and eventually blended into the land. But what came from Europe was different. When European ships reached Indian shores in the late 15th and early 16th centuries, they did not come seeking land. They came seeking profit. Portugal arrived first, then the Dutch, the French, and finally the English. They did not announce conquest. They asked for permission to trade. And India agreed. At the time, India was not a single political entity. It was a mosaic of kingdoms, empires, princely states, and regional powers. The Mughal Empire dominated much of the north, but its control was uneven. In the south, powerful kingdoms ruled independently. Local rulers competed, fought, allied, and betrayed one another constantly. This political fragmentation was normal for India. It had existed for centuries and had not destroyed the civilization. What no one anticipated was how perfectly this fragmentation could be exploited. European traders did not behave like previous invaders. They did not attempt to replace local rulers immediately. Instead, they inserted themselves into existing rivalries. They offered weapons, training, money, and military support. Slowly, they became useful, and then indispensable. The English East India Company was not an empire. It was a business. Its goal was not governance. Its goal was profit. Every decision it made was calculated in balance sheets, not ideology. This made it far more dangerous than a traditional conquering army. The company built trading posts along the coast. It hired Indian soldiers, known as sepoys. It learned local languages. It studied customs. It bribed officials. It signed treaties that favored them slightly at first, then completely. Indian rulers did not see the company as a threat. They saw it as one more player among many. A foreign merchant group with guns, yes, but still dependent on local permission. That perception would prove fatal. The turning point did not come when Britain declared war on India. It came when Indians fought Indians, and the company decided who would win. In 1757, at the Battle of Plassey, a small company force defeated the Nawab of Bengal. This was not a battle won by military genius alone. It was won by betrayal, bribery, and political manipulation. Key commanders of the Nawab switched sides. The company paid less in blood and more in coin. With that single victory, the company gained control over Bengal, one of the richest regions in the world. And suddenly, a trading company became a ruler. From that moment onward, the conquest of India was no longer accidental. It was systematic. The company realized something crucial. It did not need to conquer India all at once. It only needed to control revenue, armies, and alliances. Land could come later. Indian wealth funded the company's expansion. Indian soldiers fought its wars. Indian taxes paid for British power. The conquest of India was, in many ways, financed and enforced by Indians themselves. This was not because Indians were disloyal. It was because survival required choosing sides in a landscape where neutrality meant destruction. As the Mughal Empire weakened in the 18th century, a vacuum formed. Regional powers like the Marathas, Mysore, Hyderabad, and Bengal competed fiercely. Each sought advantage, each sought allies. The company offered help to one against another. And every alliance came with a cost. Sometimes the company ruled indirectly, allowing local rulers to remain on their thrones while controlling their finances and armies. Sometimes it ruled directly, annexing territory through legal tricks, fabricated violations, or sheer military pressure. This was conquest without a crown. It was slow. It was quiet. and it was devastating. By the time resistance became organized, the company was no longer just a merchant group. It had one of the largest standing armies in the world. It had administrative systems, it had intelligence networks, and it had mastered the art of divide and rule. India's diversity, which had once been its strength, now became its vulnerability. Language, religion, caste, region, and loyalty were all exploited. Unity was rare. Coordination was difficult. Resistance was fragmented. The conquest did not look like invasion. It looked like administration. And that made it harder to fight. By the early 19th century, vast portions of India were under company control. What had begun with trading ships had become foreign domination. Yet even then, many still believed this control was temporary, that India would correct itself, that the outsiders would leave once profits declined. They did not leave. Instead, control tightened. Economic policies drained wealth. Traditional industries collapsed. Famines followed. Taxes rose. Local authority eroded. Cultural confidence was shaken. Then came 1857. The uprising of soldiers, peasants, and rulers was not a single rebellion. It was many rebellions happening at once, driven by anger, fear, and betrayal. It was a rejection of company rule and foreign domination. The rebellion failed, and with that failure, the final illusion died. The British Crown took direct control. The company was dissolved. India was no longer indirectly ruled. It was now openly colonized. But by then, the conquest had already happened. It had not started with conquest. It had started with trade. It had not relied on overwhelming force. It had relied on patience, profit, and division. India was not conquered because it lacked courage. India was conquered because the threat did not look like a threat until it was too late. This is the brutal truth history often avoids. Empires do not always arrive with swords raised. Sometimes they arrive with contracts. Sometimes they arrive asking for permission. Sometimes they arrive as guests. And sometimes the door stays open too long. The conquest of India did not begin when Britain claimed it. It began when India allowed outsiders to become insiders without limits, without unity, and without suspicion. This is not a story about the past alone. It is a warning written in centuries. Power does not always announce itself. Control does not always look violent, and domination often begins where vigilance ends. If this story challenged what you were taught, do not ignore it. History is not meant to comfort. It is meant to inform and disturb. Support work that tells history honestly. Share stories that expose how power really works. Follow for more history that refuses to be softened, because the most dangerous conquests are not the loud ones. They are the quiet ones.